This is the second class in our first course, Created on Purpose or Evolved by Chance. Is there scientific, historical, and logical reasons to believe that the Bible is true and God is the creator of the universe? In this class, we'll take a close look at the evidence for a worldwide flood as recorded in the historical record of the Bible. Let's get started.
This is the 7th video in the Creationist online course series by Kevin Conover, and the 5th and final one on Noah's flood.
Okay, let's look at evidence 6, folded mountains. All over the world there are mountains that are folded. What that means is it's rock that's bent. If you look closely at this one right here, this is from an earth science textbook, it folds down and it doesn't break. Why doesn't it break?
Well, I think if you look a little closer, you can see there's a lot of breaking going on in those rock layers.
If you took a china plate and you were to bend it, or I were to bend it, I'm very strong, if I were to bend it, it would shatter. It wouldn't turn into a bowl, right? If I wanted to turn that china plate into a bowl, I couldn't just bend it, it would shatter. What if I applied heat and water to it, and I did it over a long period of time? I bent that plate and tried to make it into a bowl. It would still shatter. It doesn't matter how much heat's applied, it doesn't matter how much water's applied or time, it would still shatter. That's just the way rock is. So the question comes up, how do we get rock to bend like this?
As tectonic plates collide, sedimentary layers can be subducted under the surface, and then they fold under extreme heat and pressure. They may also change into metamorphic rock, which cannot be explained by the creationist model that says that they folded while wet.
This is a road cut in West Virginia. That is a massive, you can see a car down there, that is a massive mountain that has bent rock that's not shattered. This right here again is bent rock with no shatter marks. There's no break marks. Bent rock layers from Arkansas here. Here's another one. These are bent rock layers in San Juan Capistrano, California. Here's an entire island that's bent. That's a little boat down there. You can see the entire island is bent. Gigantic bent rock layers with no shatter marks, no breaking marks. This is a folded rock formation, literally makes a U-turn, goes up there. This is slick rock in Arizona. Absolutely phenomenal.
It also formed under dry desert conditions, which we can tell by the type of sandstone it is made of.
And this is an entire mountain range of bent rocks. This is near the Sullivan River in British Columbia, Canada. Now, what's the problem here from an evolutionary perspective? An evolutionist says that the layers you see, the strata, were laid down over millions of years, and they just kept getting laid down. Well, consider this. If it takes a million years for a layer to form, and the rock is bending over a million years, because what they argue is that these rocks were bent over millions of years, what you would see is the layers bent, and then other layers form on top of them.
You mean like this? This is what's called an angular unconformity.
And if the other layers formed on top of them, you would see more dirt build up in the trough areas because the dirt would have fallen. You wouldn't see layers that are even.
I'm not really following what it is he's trying to say here, because I don't believe we would expect to see that at all. The folded layers formed deep in the earth. Then the entire area was pushed up by tectonic plate movement. The top of the folded layers eroded away during a long period of erosion. Then during a period of sedimentation, we see the layers on top deposited above.
The creation account says this. It says that the sediment fell quickly, one on top of the other, and then it was bent, okay? So it was bent, and so that's why all the layers are bent together. But an evolutionist perspective doesn't make sense. Why would you have the layers bent like that if they all fell over millions of years? It just makes no sense. And so you can see here that this is argument for a creation hypothesis, not for the evolutionary hypothesis.
The truth is, only subduction, deformation, uplift, erosion, followed by more sedimentation can explain what we see here. The creationist version says all these layers were formed at the same time.
These are the Alps in Switzerland. You can see again a gigantic mountain bent, not broken.
And this is all metamorphic rock, which can only be formed under extreme heat and pressure. The only people he's fooling are the people who haven't studied geology at all.
Okay, evidence 7. Large canyons form quickly, not slowly, over millions of years. As the mountains rose up, right, the tectonic activity rose up, the water rushed off, and as it rushed off, it ripped giant canyons in the earth. And these smaller floods after the worldwide flood ripped canyons. What damage can water do when it flows rapidly? Well, this is in the Guadalupe River residents were rebuilding after flood losses. This was a flood in 2002. And it says here that a canyon 70 feet deep in some places was formed, uncovered fossils, ancient shells, and freshwater springs. Over the 4th of July weekend, this happened, and boulders the size of mobile homes were ripped from the earth. It actually carved out a whole new kind of river there into the lake. And there it is, ripped right through roads and everything else. It was a flood from 30 inches of rain in 1 week. The spillway overflowed in Guadalupe River, Texas, and caused this gigantic canyon.
Well, to me, this is evidence that all these canyons we see around the world didn't need a worldwide flood to occur.
Now, notice this, that the Amazon River is one of the biggest rivers in the world, and it hasn't carved any canyons. It's been flowing for thousands of years, but no canyons have formed. What we have evidence of is that canyons form quickly with lots of water flowing all at once. We don't have evidence that canyons form when a lot of water flows over a long period of time.
While the headwaters of the Amazon River are high in the Andes Mountains, it quickly drops way down to a much lower elevation. Because there's not much change in elevation for most of its course, we wouldn't expect to see it form any deep canyons.
This is a different situation. It was also a spillway that overflowed. This was a canyon that formed in 6 days, and it went from 10 feet deep to 120 feet deep. It's the Burlingame Canyon in Walla Walla, Washington, and absolutely incredible. Here is a close-up of it. You can see a person standing on top of the canyon, carved in 6 days, 120 feet deep.
No geologist says that canyons like that can't form quickly, and again, it's not evidence for a worldwide flood.
What about the Grand Canyon? Was the Grand Canyon formed quickly by a massive worldwide flood that happened about 4,400 years ago, or was it formed very slowly over millions of years by the Colorado River? If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, it's absolutely phenomenal. If you're scared of heights, you don't want to go on this bridge. The bridge has a glass floor, so you can walk out and be scared to death as you walk and look at the Grand Canyon. Very exciting. For those of you who are thrill seekers, there you go.
I hate
there's
that
another
thing.
picture of it.
It's ugly.
You can see how incredible that is. And there's another side picture just showing how far out over the canyon you are. You'll be praying the whole time. That'll improve your prayer life right there, at least for that time while you're on the bridge. And so you can see here, pretty amazing. The Grand Canyon is absolutely phenomenal. Take a moment to listen to Eric Hovind as he explains the problem with the idea that the Colorado River formed the Grand Canyon over millions of years.
Here we go.
Welcome to Creation Minute. I'm Eric Hovind. The Grand Canyon. 277 miles long, 10 to 18 miles wide, and more than a mile deep. That's impressive. In the bottom is the Colorado River. You know, some scientists suggest the Colorado River formed the Grand Canyon over millions of years. But take a look at these facts to see it from a different perspective. The Colorado River enters the canyon 2,800 feet above sea level. It exits the canyon 1,800 feet above sea level. And the top of Grand Canyon is 7,000 feet above sea level. So you tell me, did the river flow uphill for millions of years to carve out the Grand Canyon?
No. Anyone who studied the geology of the area knows that the entire region, the Colorado Plateau, lifted several thousand feet over millions of years, accelerating the downcutting and erosion.
Or is it possible that the Grand Canyon is the result of Noah's flood? To learn more about creation, visit us at creationminute.com.
That was more like a commercial for Eric Hovind than an explanation of anything.
Okay, this is looking down at the Grand Canyon from up in an airplane. you'll notice that little tiny thing down in the center there, that's the Colorado River. And look how wide the canyon is. The Grand Canyon at its widest is 18 miles wide, but the Colorado River at its widest is only 500 feet wide. So how in the world are you going to tell me that that little tiny stream of water created a canyon 18 miles wide? That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I would never tell you that because that's not what geologists believe happened. Most people only think of the Grand Canyon as a hot and dry place. During the winter, the canyon goes through many periods of freezing and thawing, sometimes almost on a daily basis. This separates sections of the canyon wall where they fall down to the valley floor below. Before we controlled the flow by installing dams, the river was subject to massive annual floodings, which would have eroded these boulders and carried them further downstream.
What actually happened here was a whole lot of water came through, ripped out the Grand Canyon, and then left behind it the Colorado River, which followed the trail through the Grand Canyon.
But there's no evidence of that at all, and he's about to show evidence against it.
The length of the Grand Canyon is 277 miles. The width is 18 miles. The height is 1 mile. The Colorado River enters the canyon at 2,800 feet above sea level. It exits the canyon at 1,800 feet above sea level. And the peak of the canyon is at 7,000 feet above sea level. Okay, so let's think about this. Let's pretend there's no Grand Canyon and the Colorado River is coming down and it's going to create the Grand Canyon. All this water is rushing down and it hits the entrance point, which is 2,800 feet above sea level. Now remember, it's just flat ground at this point in time. So the Colorado River is going to have to flow uphill almost 4,000 feet in order to carve the Grand Canyon. It's going to have to violate the law of gravity. Now this is absolutely ludicrous. What do uniformitarian geologists, those who support evolution, claim happened here? They claim that at one time the top of the Grand Canyon was lower than the entrance of the Grand Canyon, and so the Colorado River carved it, and then afterwards it uplifted. That's their claim.
And once again, that's not what geologists believe happened. An event called the Laramide orogeny caused the uplift of the Colorado Plateau when two tectonic plates crashed together. This was happening 50 million years ago. The Grand Canyon, as we know it, only formed within the last 6 million years. Before that, the river that formed much of the canyon flowed in the opposite direction. We can tell that by the angle that most of the older canyons from older tributaries enter the main canyon.
So what you're looking at right here is what Walt Brown discovered, which is that there used to be a lake that he named Grand Lake above the Grand Canyon. Now that lake no longer exists, it's dry now, but that lake is what caused the Grand Canyon.
Walt Brown didn't discover that, but he may have read the hypothesis that was written by others.
If you zero in there, you can see it. Now, how do we know that Grand Lake was there? Well, there's all kinds of evidence, sedimentary evidence, that that lake existed. Nobody disputes that. In fact, on top of the Grand Canyon, there are actually potholes. This is the highest point on Echo Cliffs. It's a weathered pothole. Now, potholes formed when whirling rocks caught in an eddy or vortex of a fast-flowing stream grind down, carving a cylindrical depression. The question is, why was water flowing so rapidly this high? This is 6,654 feet above sea level. It's at the upper edge of a 2,000-foot cliff.
That doesn't mean the potholes formed when the Grand Canyon was full of water, thousands of feet. It means the potholes formed when the river had only cut that far down into the Grand Canyon.
You know, at the beginning of this class, I said, if the flood really happened, it means God is very serious about judging evil and sin. And I think the evidence is overwhelming that there actually was a worldwide flood, that the flood recorded in the Bible is a true historical event.
There were a few minutes of evangelizing going on next, so I just cut that part out.
I hope this course has helped you see that it makes much more sense to believe that the worldwide flood recorded in the Bible is a historical event and not a fairy tale or a metaphor. We covered the fact that God must judge evildoers because He is a good God. We covered the evidence for a worldwide flood, including over 400 flood stories from different cultures all over the world. We covered the fact that fossils can form quickly and need specific conditions to form, that there are marine fossils on tops of the mountains and very far inland, that there are marine animals buried with land animals, that there are geological features all over the earth that could only be caused by a worldwide flood, that there are folded and unshattered mountains all over the world, and that there are large canyons which form quickly with a lot of water, not slowly with a little water, the biggest one being the Grand Canyon that couldn't have been formed by the Colorado River.
And I hope that my viewers will agree that he didn't do a very good job of any of that.
Our next class is one of my favorites, Class 103, What About the Dinosaurs? Well, the answers are going to amaze you. I can't wait to see you in our next class. See you soon.
That'll be fun. In the next video, we will cover Did Man Walk with Dinosaurs? Now remember, this is an online creationist course created by Kevin Conover. Joining me on the next segment will be Jackson Wheat. Many of the Grand Canyon photographs featured in this video were taken by National Geographic explorer and photographer Pete McBride. I got to meet Pete last year when he was on his Nat Geo Live tour called The Grand Canyon, Between River and Rim, along with author Kevin Fedarko. While school children were being seated for the presentation, I was able to talk with them about layers from the Grand Canyon, like the Coconino Sandstone, where I discovered lots of reptile tracks. Pete just released a new film called Into the Grand Canyon, which is available on the National Geographic channel. So if you want to see real good information about the Grand Canyon and lots of amazing photography, check that out.